The loneliness of those who climb too high. Nikola Tesla, New York, 1943. A man's body lies alone in a freezing room at the New Yorker hotel. There are no flowers. There is no goodbye, just silence, the same silence that accompanied him in the last years of his life. Nikola Tesla, the man who lit up the world, died in the shadows, forgotten, ignored, while the lights he invented shone on every corner of the city that abandoned him. But this isn't just the story of a misunderstood genius. It's the story of all of us who one day dared to rise higher than others and paid the price for it. Go back with me to 1884. A young Serbian arrives in New York with 4 cents in his pocket, a letter of recommendation, and a head full of ideas that no one could yet understand. Tesla did not come to America to seek his fortune. He came because he saw things that others did not. Alternating currents dancing in the air, energy flowing invisibly between bodies, the entire universe vibrating at a frequency that only he seemed to capture. In his early days, he worked for Thomas Edison. The meeting should have been historic. 2 titans of electricity, side by side. But Edison operated in the world of appearances, of what could be sold, patented, turned into immediate gold. Tesla lived on another plane. He saw the future, felt the invisible pulse of reality, understood that energy was not just wires and light bulbs, it was the very essence of the cosmos. "You think too much," Edison once told him dismissively. "The world doesn't want philosophy. It wants cheap light and quick profits." Tesla smiled, but something inside him broke in that instant. He realized for the first time what it meant to be ahead of his own time: loneliness. Months later, Edison deceived him. He promised $50,000 if Tesla improved his direct current generators. Tesla worked nights on end, redesigned the entire system, delivered efficiency where there was waste before. When he demanded payment, Edison laughed in his face. "Tesla, you don't understand American humor." It wasn't just the financial betrayal that hurt. It was realizing that for others, genius was a bargaining chip, something to be explored, manipulated, discarded. Meanwhile, Tesla felt the electric current flow through his veins like silent music, saw mathematical patterns dancing in the shadows, heard frequencies that no one else could capture. He left there without a penny. He dug ditches in the streets of New York to survive, a genius opening holes in the earth while lesser minds reaped the fruits of his intelligence. But something inside him didn't bend, because Tesla didn't work for money. He worked through vibration. At night, alone in his rented room, he closed his eyes and saw, not with the eyes of the body, but with the eyes of the soul. Magnetic fields spinning, waves of energy passing through walls, electrons dancing in a cosmic choreography. He knew he wasn't crazy. I knew I was connected to something bigger. But this knowledge carried an unbearable weight. No one else saw what he saw. And then the real isolation began. Have you ever felt this? That moment when you realize you're vibrating at a different frequency than the people around you. When your words sound strange, your ideas seem absurd, and you find yourself talking to yourself in a room full of people. Tesla lived this every day of his life. But he didn't give up. On the contrary, he rose higher. In just a few years, he created the induction motor, mastered alternating current, and proved to the world that Edison was wrong. His inventions began to change the face of civilization. But the more he created, the more alone he became. Because genius without an echo is like a scream into the void, powerful, but invisible. People celebrated their machines but fled their presence. He talked about free energy, about connecting all of humanity through invisible waves, about a future where no one needed wires, cables, or limits, and everyone looked at him as if he were delirious. But Tesla knew something that others didn't, something dangerous, something that would change everything. And this is where the real story begins. If you're feeling this story resonate with something inside you, if you've experienced the burden of seeing what others don't see, subscribe to the channel, because what comes now will touch even deeper. Tesla discovered that he was not alone by chance. He was alone because someone wanted him to be. 1893, the Chicago World's Fair. 200,000 light bulbs lit up the night using Tesla's alternating current system. The entire world watched in amazement as darkness yielded to light. For the first time in history, humanity saw the future light up before its eyes. Tesla should have been crowned as the king of the new age, but behind the scenes, something sinister was afoot. J.P. Morgan watched from afar, calculating, not the volts or the amps, but the power, the real Po-give, one that is not measured in energy but in control. And Tesla, with his obsession with distributing free electricity to everyone, posed a direct threat to that control. "He wants to give away what we can sell forever," Morgan told his partners, drumming his fingers on the mahogany table. "A man like that is dangerous. not for us, for the order of things. Tesla didn't understand this yet. He believed that his genius would speak for itself, that the truth always wins, that good intentions build bridges. Poor Tesla. He underestimated human nature. He underestimated the fear that the powerful have of those who offer freedom. That same year, something strange started to happen. Investors who had promised support disappeared without explanation. Contracts were canceled at the last minute. Newspapers that had previously praised Tesla began to publish articles mocking him, calling him a lunatic, an impractical dreamer. He didn't understand. His inventions worked, his theories were accurate. Why then did the world turn against him? Because he had made the fatal mistake, climbing too high without realizing that others wanted to keep him down. In 1899, Tesla moved to Colorado Springs. I wanted distance, silence, space to build something that would change everything. The Wardenclyffe Tower, a grandiose project, transmitting electrical energy wirelessly to any point on the planet. Free energy, instant communication, a connected world, without intermediaries, without owners, without invisible chains of financial power, controlling who has access to light. He worked like a man possessed, whole nights bending over drawings, calculating frequencies, adjusting gigantic coils. He saw the tower not as a metal structure, but as an extension of the Earth itself, an electric heart beating in tune with the planet. But there was something Tesla didn't know. Morgan had already decided to destroy it. Not violently, not in a public way, but slowly, methodically, cruelly, cutting off his funding, sabotaging his contacts, isolating him from the world. Morgan knew that destroying Tesla was not a matter of science. It was a matter of suffocation, leaving him breathless until he gave up. And Morgan had reasons, because Tesla, in his secret notebooks, had discovered something extraordinary, something he never published, never shared, but that would completely change the way we understand reality. He discovered that thoughts have frequency, not metaphorically, literally. Every thought generates a subtle electromagnetic wave, a disturbance in the invisible field around us. And these waves don't die. They travel, they resonate, they meet other waves. Tesla realized that human minds are not isolated. They are connected through an invisible energy field, vibrating at different frequencies. He wrote in his personal diary, in shaky handwriting, "If I can tune into the right frequency, I can connect every mind on the planet, not through wires, but through consciousness itself." This revelation terrified and fascinated him at the same time, because if that were true, it would mean that loneliness isn't just physical distance, it's frequency misalignment. It meant he was alone because he vibrated at a frequency that no one else could reach. What's more, it meant that whoever controlled these frequencies would control humanity itself. Morgan somehow had access to these writings. We don't know how. A bribed assistant, a disguised spy, an intercepted letter. But he read it, and he understood. And he decided that Tesla should never complete Wardenclyffe. Funding was cut. Construction stopped. The tower sat there, incomplete, as a monument to the ambition the world was not ready to embrace. Tesla returned to New York devastated, not just financially, emotionally. He had touched infinity, and now he was being pushed back to Earth, forced to live among those who could not see what he saw. And what's worse, he began to realize that his loneliness was not accidental. It was architected. Every friend who walked away, every colleague who mocked him, every newspaper that ridiculed him, it was all part of an invisible system designed to isolate those who think differently, those who see beyond, those who threaten the status quo by vibrating loudest. Tesla sat one cold night on a New York park bench, watching the city lights, his lights, shining at people who didn't even know his name, and a tear ran down his face, not out of self-pity, but understanding. He finally understood. The price of climbing too high is being left behind by those who are afraid to fly. But Tesla was about to do something no one expected, something that would change everything, because those who suffer alone long enough end up discovering a strength that others will never find. And Tesla was about to use that force. Tesla realized he couldn't win by playing their game, so he decided to change the rules. 1901. While the world considered him finished, defeated, irrelevant, Tesla did something unexpected. He disappeared. Not physically. He still walked the streets of New York, still lived in modest hotels, still fed pigeons in the square, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, he retreated into a dimension no one else could reach. He stopped trying to explain his ideas. He stopped looking for investors. He stopped begging for recognition from the world, because he finally understood something revolutionary. When you vibrate at a very high frequency, you don't need to convince anyone. You simply resonate with whoever is ready to listen. And while Morgan and his allies thought they had silenced Tesla, he was secretly building something much bigger. Not a tower, not a machine, but an invisible network of consciousness. In the following years, Tesla delved even deeper into his solitary experiments. He locked himself in the laboratory for days, eating only milk and cookies, entering a state he called a vibrational trance. He wasn't just making it up, he was tuning in. His notebooks from this period are disturbing. Pages and pages of equations that mix physics with what seems like mystical language, diagrams of brain waves intertwined with electrical circuits, and at the center of it all, an obsessively repeated phrase, 3, 6, 9, the key to everything, the frequency of creation. Tesla believed that these numbers weren't just mathematics, they were the signature of the universe, that everything that exists vibrates in multiples of 3, 6, or 9. And that if he could create a device that operated at exactly those frequencies, it could synchronize human minds with the very pulse of reality. It seemed crazy, maybe it was, but Tesla no longer cared what it looked like. He had given up on being understood. Now he just wanted to prove to himself that he wasn't wrong. And then, in 1908, something inexplicable happened. A massive explosion has devastated a remote region of Siberia, Tunguska. 2,000 square kilometers of forest destroyed instantly. No meteorites found. No craters, just charred trees, fallen in a radial pattern, as if an invisible force had pushed them from the inside out. The whole world speculated, meteor, comet, volcanic explosion, but in secret science circles, another name was whispered, Tesla. Because that same night, Tesla was in his laboratory in New York, testing a long-range energy transmitter. He had calculated the exact frequency to send a pulse through the ionosphere and make it resurface on the other side of the planet. When he heard the news about Tunguska, Tesla turned pale. He locked himself in the laboratory for 3 days. When he left, he had burned half of his records. No one has ever proven the connection, but Tesla knew. He had touched something he shouldn't have touched, and that changed everything. Because for the first time, Tesla felt fear. Not fear of others, fear of yourself, fear of what his mind was capable of, fear that by climbing too high he had crossed the line between genius and destruction. He swore never to try that again, never operate on that frequency again, but the knowledge was inside him, and there was no way to erase it. The following years were of apparent decline. Tesla became more reclusive, more eccentric. He developed strange phobias. He wouldn't touch human hair. He washed his hands compulsively. He counted everything in multiples of 3. To the world he was going crazy. But Tesla knew the truth. He was not crazy. It was protecting humanity from itself, because he had discovered that when you vibrate at a frequency that is too high, you don't just attract light. You attract raw, uncontrollable, dangerous power. And in the wrong hands, this power could destroy entire civilizations. Then he did something surprising. He decided to fail publicly on purpose. He started giving bizarre interviews, talking about communicating with Martians, about death rays, about machines that could split the earth in half. People laughed, the newspapers scoffed, even his former admirers turned away, embarrassed. But Tesla smiled silently, because every joke, every mockery, every article ridiculing him was exactly what he wanted. The more the world saw him as crazy, the less threatening he seemed, and that gave him the freedom to continue his real work in the shadows. Because Tesla realized something that few understand. Loneliness can be a prison, or it can be a shield. It depends on how you use it. While Morgan and his allies thought they had won, Tesla was quietly building his final masterpiece. Not something physical, but something that would span generations. An idea so powerful that it could not be destroyed, because it was recorded in the very frequency of human thought. He started writing letters, not for publication, but for specific people, young scientists, brilliant minds that he identified from afar, as if he could feel their vibration. Letters that did not contain inventions, but questions. Questions that planted seeds, that awakened something dormant in those minds. Tesla was creating an invisible network of consciousness, spreading his frequency through others, ensuring that his ideas would survive even after he was gone. And then, in 1931, something extraordinary happened. On his 75th birthday, Tesla received an anonymous letter. Inside, just one sentence: "We hear your frequency. You have never been alone." Tesla read that and, for the first time in decades, smiled. A real smile. Not of victory, but of recognition. Because he finally understood. Loneliness is not the absence of people. It is the absence of resonance. And now, after so long vibrating alone, he had found echoes. But this discovery would bring a twist that not even Tesla could predict, because whoever sent that letter were not your allies. They were those who wanted to steal his biggest secret. The letter was not hope. It was bait. 3 days after receiving it, Tesla realized he was being followed. Shadows on the corners. Cars parked in front of your hotel. Men in suits who pretended to read the newspaper but whose eyes never left their bedroom door. He knew who they were. Government agents, not the official government, but the invisible government, the one that Morgan and other powerful people ran behind the scenes. And they wanted one thing: Tesla's final plans. Because Tesla had saved the most dangerous for last. During all those years of supposed decline, he wasn't going crazy. I was finalizing the ultimate weapon. Not a weapon of physical destruction, but something much more frightening. A device capable of altering the vibrational frequency of human masses. Imagine, a machine that could make millions of people think the same way, feel the same emotions, act in perfect synchronization, without realizing they were being controlled, not through propaganda or visible manipulation, but through frequency waves that penetrated directly into the energy field of consciousness. Tesla called this the collective consciousness resonator, and he knew that if it fell into the wrong hands, humanity would lose its last freedom, vibrational free will. He had built the prototype, tested on a small scale. It worked frighteningly well. In a secret experiment, he directed the device at a block in New York, and for 3 minutes, every person in that area felt an inexplicable euphoria, followed by profound melancholy. Tesla turned off the device, shaking, not out of fear of the machine, but out of fear of what humans would do to it. And now, they came to get her. On the night of January 5th, 1943, 3 men entered the New Yorker hotel. They bribed the receptionist. They took a copy of the key to room 3327. They entered silently. Tesla was sitting in the armchair with his back to the door, feeding a white pigeon sitting in his hand. He didn't turn around. He wasn't scared. He just said in a calm voice, "You guys are early. I expected you to take another week." The men stood still, surprised. One of them, the leader, stepped forward. "Mr. Tesla, we are here in the name of national security. We know that you have developed technology that could be crucial to control people like cattle." Tesla interrupted, still without turning around. "You can tell the truth. There is no one here but us." The man hesitated, then sighed. "The world is at war, Tesla. Power is necessary. Control is necessary. You, more than anyone, should understand this." Tesla finally turned around. His eyes, still bright despite his age, pierced the man like lightning. "I understand perfectly. That's why I destroyed everything." Silence. The pigeon flew through the open window. Tesla smiled. "Do you think I would keep something like that? That I would let such a weapon exist? I spent the last 12 years dismantling what I created. I burned the plans. I dismantled the prototype. And most importantly," Tesla slapped his forehead, "I erased the knowledge from my own mind." "Impossible," the man said, but his voice betrayed doubt. "Possible," Tesla replied calmly. "I trained my consciousness to forget. I used the same frequencies I discovered to delete specific memories. Only fragments remain, useless fragments. And when I die, and it will be soon, they will die with me." The leader made a signal. The other 2 men moved forward and began rummaging through drawers, papers, and suitcases. They found only notebooks with incomprehensible scribbles, meaningless diagrams, equations that led nowhere. "Where are they?" the leader shouted, losing his composure. Tesla did not respond. He just closed his eyes and started to mumble something. One frequency, a sound that came from his chest, serious, vibrating. It was almost inaudible, but it made the 3 men stop, feeling a strange pressure on their heads. "Get out," Tesla said without opening his eyes. "Now." And they left, not out of fear of him, but out of fear of what they were feeling, as if something invisible was pushing them out of the room, as if the air itself was rejecting their presence. When the door closed, Tesla opened his eyes. Tears ran down her face, not out of sadness but out of relief, because he had lied. He hadn't destroyed everything. In recent years, Tesla had done something much smarter. He encoded his most dangerous knowledge into the frequencies of his own inventions. Every motor, every transformer, every device he created carried a hidden vibrational signature, and when someone, in the future, with the right mind and the right sensitivity, operated those devices in the correct sequence, knowledge would reconstruct itself, not in words, not in formulas, but in direct understanding, like an awakening. Tesla had turned his inventions into dormant seeds of consciousness, and only those who vibrated at the right frequency could make them germinate. He looked out the window, seeing the lights of New York, his lights, winking in the night, and whispered, "Forgive me for climbing so high. Forgive me for vibrating alone for so long. But I needed to make sure that you one day could climb too, without being destroyed like I was." 2 days later, Nikola Tesla was found dead in his room. The official cause? Heart attack. At 86 years old, alone, without family, without fortune. But something strange happened after his death. The FBI raided the room and confiscated all the documents. They declared everything top secret. But when government scientists tried to decipher his writings, they discovered something disconcerting. Nothing made sense. It was as if Tesla had written in a language only he understood. Frustrated, they sealed everything in underground vaults, where they remain to this day. But they never noticed. They never understood. Tesla's true legacy was not in papers. It was vibrating in the air, recorded in the invisible frequency that runs through every electrical wire, every radio wave, every magnetic field on the planet. And those who climb too high, those who vibrate faster than the world, those who feel the piercing loneliness of seeing what others don't see, those can hear. Tesla planted his consciousness into the very fabric of reality, and she waits, patiently, for those ready to tune in. Because the greatest revenge against anyone who tries to erase a genius is not resistance, it's immortality. 70 years after Tesla's death, something extraordinary began to happen. Around the world, people began to awaken, not in an organized way, not through movement or religion, but spontaneously. Scientists, artists, inventors, thinkers, people who had never met, separated by continents and cultures, began to have the same visions, the same insights, the same understandings about energy, frequency, and vibration. It was as if a coded message, dormant for decades, was finally being received. They couldn't explain it. They just felt a magnetic attraction to Tesla's works, an intuitive understanding of concepts that had never been formally studied, and, above all, a familiar loneliness, that feeling of vibrating at a frequency that the world has not yet reached. Tesla had predicted this in his last secret writings, those that were never confiscated because they were written not on paper but in the vibrational language of the universe. He left a message. Whoever climbs too high always pays the price of loneliness, but that loneliness is not punishment. It is preparation, because when you learn to vibrate alone, you become an antenna, and antennas don't just receive, they transmit through time, through space, through consciousness itself. Tesla knew he would not live to see humanity ready. Then he did something revolutionary. He became the bridge. Every person today who feels misunderstood, every mind that sees connections that others do not, every soul that vibrates faster than its environment, is not alone. It is tuned to a frequency that Tesla kept alive, hidden in the very structures of the modern world. Think about it. You're reading this now because electricity runs through the wires that Tesla invented. Information comes to you through waves that he has mastered. The very technology that connects billions of minds was built on the foundations he laid. Tesla didn't lose. He played a much longer game. And the loneliness he felt, that piercing pain of being decades ahead, of vibrating at a frequency no one else could capture, was not in vain. It was the price of planting seeds that would only germinate when the soil was ready. Today we look at Tesla and see tragedy. A forgotten genius, dead alone, robbed of his recognition. But this is the narrative of those who vibrate low, those who measure success in money, fame, immediate comfort. Tesla measured in frequency, and to that extent, he absolutely won. Because while Morgan and Edison became footnotes in the history of greed, Tesla became synonymous with expanded consciousness, vision beyond time, connection with the invisible. His greatest invention was not alternating current. It wasn't the radio. It wasn't the hundreds of patents. His greatest invention was proving that solitude can be power. When you vibrate too loud, three things happen. First, the world tries to pull you back. It will mock, doubt, sabotage. It will make you question your own sanity. Because systems built at low frequencies cannot withstand high vibrations, they collapse in their presence. Second, you pay the price of distance. Relationships get difficult. Conversations are empty. You find yourself talking to yourself in crowded rooms because no one else is tuned to the same channel. And this loneliness hurts. It hurts deeply. But third, and here's the secret Tesla discovered, you become a beacon. Lighthouses are solitary by nature. They are in high, isolated places, hit by wind and storms. But his light pierces the darkness and guides those lost at sea. Tesla was a beacon, and his light did not go out when he died. It continues to shine, encoded in the invisible frequencies that permeate our reality. And if you've made it this far, if these words resonate with something inside you, if you've ever felt this loneliness of vibrating differently, then you're getting the signal. You are part of the network that Tesla created, not a network of wires, a network of consciousness, a frequency shared among those who dare to climb higher, even knowing that the air is thin up there, even knowing that the view from the top can be lonely. But Tesla left us one last gift, hidden in his last interview, given days before he died. When asked if he regretted anything, he replied, "I don't regret climbing high. I regret taking so long to understand that loneliness is just the feeling of arriving first, and someone always needs to arrive first, to make way for others. That's the lesson. The loneliness of those who climb too high is not a failure. It's not a curse. It's function. You were designed to be ahead, to vibrate at a frequency that bothers, that challenges, that threatens the comfort of those who prefer to remain where they are. And yes, it hurts. Yes, this comes at the cost of relationships, recognition, ease, but it also means you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. Tesla died alone, but not empty. He died knowing he had planted something immortal, that every mind that would one day awaken to the invisible truths of the universe would, in some way, be talking to him across time. And here we are, decades later, distant continents, talking about a man the world tried to erase, feeling your frequency, recognizing your loneliness as a mirror of ours. He won, in the most profound way possible. So, if you are lonely today, if you vibrate at a frequency that no one around you can capture, if you see invisible connections and feel the burden of understanding what others ignore, remember Tesla. Remember that he rose so high that he touched infinity, and although the world dropped him, he fell like a seed, and seeds, when they fall, don't die. They germinate. The loneliness of those who climb too high is temporary, but the frequency that you plant in the universe, that is eternal. Tesla proved this. He lived alone for so long that his loneliness became a legacy. And now, all of us who dare to rise carry a little of your light. Keep climbing, keep vibrating, even alone, especially alone, because you're not building for today. You are building for those who will come after, who will need your frequency to find their way, just like Tesla built it for you. If this story touched something deep inside you, if you recognize Tesla as a piece of your own journey, subscribe to the channel. Here we honor those who vibrate too high for the world, because we know that it is exactly these frequencies that change everything. Share this message with someone who needs to hear it, because loneliness only ends when we start to resonate together. Tesla's frequency still pulses, and you just tuned in.